ngalemini kungolosithathu namhlanje losuku ke sisebenzisela for into ye-Bible study. Again, let me express my sincere sense of appreciation. I do not take it for granted that God has granted me this opportunity to be with you. And I thank you for your time that you are spending with me, that it will add some value in your faith in the Lord and make your life better. Shall we pray? Uzuko lolwakho, imbeko yeyakho, yeyakho. You are not the greatest God, but you are incomparably great. You cannot be compared to anything. We thank you for this moment. We thank you for the gift of life. We do not take it for granted that we are still alive. We plead your mercy and your grace. We ask for your protection. May your hand be upon our lives. We plead your blood, O God. We pray for those that are our loved ones that have passed on. We pray for those families that are close to those people. May you give them strength in this time of trouble. You find in other families, people, they die by twos, by threes. You find people that cannot even go to the funeral of their spouses. Lord, it is in time like these that we come before you. Ulwethu ulwazi nokwethu ukuqina uphelelwe. Sithembe wena nangalo mzuzu. Sincede Thixo, come to our rescue. In Jesus we hope and pray. Amen. Kule mizuzu ndinayo kunye nawe this evening, in these few minutes that I have with you this evening, in the light of what is happening worldwide, and specifically to our country as South Africa, I'm sure any reasonable parent, he must be concerned about the state of the nation. As a father, as a grandfather, as a pastor, and as a businessman, I look at the state of the nation and it gives me sleepless nights. What kind of a future that lies ahead? How are our grandchildren, our children, going to face up with the challenges that you are faced with? There are three things that I find that are major contributors to the state of the nation. That among the things that it has done, it has literally destroyed the economy. And there is a lack of trust in leadership. And the nation is in a state of confusion, sometimes state of despair, hopelessness and helplessness. There are three factors. One, a lack of accountability The second point, a sense of entitlement. And thirdly, corruption. And last but not least, this bubhane sinaye, corona lena sinayo, ibulala abantu ngobuninzi babo, yenze into yoba kuvalwe neekhampani namashishini asakhasayo namakhulu. Now, you'd ask me, what maybe am I going to talk about in the light of those challenges? Today, I felt that I would like to take one character that performed here in this continent, in Africa, by the name of Joseph, and begin to look at him and see if are there any principles that we can emulate from him, that we can apply in our lives in order to influence the situation that we find ourselves in. There are certain principles that we'll learn from this man called Joseph. I'll tell you why that is important. It's important because money, influence, and position are nothing compared with brains, principles, energy, and perseverance. I want to repeat that. Money, influence, and position are nothing compared with brains, principles, energy, and perseverance. I think that's very, very important for us to catch that principle. One thing that you find about Joseph, have you ever noticed that, for instance, when Joseph was sold by his brothers to the Ishmaelites because of jealousy and the dreams that he was sharing with his brothers and also with his parents. Even his parents were not comfortable with those dreams, because in those dreams he seems to be kind of exalted above everybody else. But more than that about his brothers, the fact that when he was born as the 11th child, his father made him a special garment with different colors. And I want us to listen to this thing. Joseph was not responsible for his father making this garment for him. That garment had history. There was history. Because sometimes we are born in situations where we are joining a film that has been playing before we even got there. Have you ever come to a place, let's say you come to your home late in the evening and you feel that you are not ready to sleep, you switch on your television and you page through, you come to this film, but you catch it in the middle, but it catches your attention and then you watch it. But this film is just in the middle. You haven't started where it started. You don't even know who is the director. You don't even know the script. You're just seeing just this film. Sometimes life is like that. We are joining a film that has been playing. We do not know who's the script of, the director of this film. Joseph is not aware of the fact that his father, he was interested in his mother in the first place. And his father was tricked by the uncle to get uLeya, wachata kunye noLeya. And the story goes, got children from uLeya and the sons of Leah and umama kaJoseph engafumani bantwana. But the first love of Jacob was his mother. Hence, at that age, when he had already 11 children, when his first love gave birth to a child, he was too excited and celebrated that and expressed his sense of celebration in that way. Joseph is not part of this, and this created enmity between Joseph, who's not aware of what is happening, and sometimes we are born in situations where things happen that we are not even aware of. But I'm not preaching about that now. So Joseph, that's the reason that created this enmity. And also himself, he was very, very immatured in a sense that he shared things prematurely. I have a saying that says, please be very careful. Don't provoke jealousy. There is no need for you, if you are very successful in whatever way, that you go to somebody who is struggling and begin to brag to him about your success and your achievements. There are other people who have achieved more than you. Maybe those are the right people or equal to you that you can go and speak about your achievements. Please be very careful of kind of provoking jealousy. Be very careful what you share with whom. And also what you are sharing about with that person. How is it going to affect that person negatively? Be very careful. So Joseph was not sharp when it comes to that. You are sharing where his brothers will bow down to him and what have you. Nobody will take light to that. This young boy, who the hell does he think he is? But the point that I want to come to, his father was relying on Joseph. He sent Joseph to his brothers to bring them something to eat because they were shepherds. Because Joseph had this attitude in life of saying yes to responsibility. You know When he was sold to Egypt, he ended up in Potiphar's house. Guess what? He became in charge of everything else. He said yes to responsibility. You know what happened? Where he ended up in jail, where he was accused that he was interested, he wanted to rape Potiphar's wife, Mrs. Potiphar. And he ended up in jail. Guess what happened in jail? He was in charge. This man, the warden, left everything to him because Joseph had this yes responsibility mentality. You know why this attitude is very, very important for us? This yes to responsibility. You see, the problem with us, there is this sense of entitlement. As a result, we have what Gandhi calls among the 7 deadly sins. He says, wealth without work. This refers to the practice of getting something for nothing, manipulating markets and assets so you don't have to work or produce or added value. Just manipulate people and things. Today, there are professions built around making wealth without working, making much money without paying taxes, benefiting from free government programs without carrying a first share of financial burdens, and enjoying all the perks of citizenship of a country and membership of corporations without assuming any of the risk or responsibility. How many of the fraudulent schemes that went on, to an extent that we live in a decade of greed, where basically getting rich quick schemes or speculations promising practitioners you don't even have to work for it. That is why I would be very concerned if one of my children went into speculative enterprise, or if they learn how to make a lot of money fast without having to pay the price by adding value on a day-to-day basis. This sense of entitlement, this sense of wealth without work. And Joseph had this principle of yes to responsibility. He was ready to dirty his hands. He was dirty to get involved, to work hard, to take responsibility. And my appeal to us as South Africans, specifically as blacks, because I'm black, to say yes to responsibility. That's the first thing. The second point, which is very, very important, no to temptation. We know the story when Potiphar's wife, it says, because Joseph, he was handsome, he was well built, he was good looking. That's chapter 39, Genesis. And this woman felt attracted. He had this erotic love, romantic love to this young man. And Joseph, because Joseph had what we call accountability, because accountability is the life blood on the entrusted power to manage affairs and resources, honesty, to the interest of others. And listen to Joseph when he goes into pain to try to explain to this woman that everything that is here is under my control and my power, except you. He knew how far his power can go. He had limits. And because he didn't lack in this area of accountability, I want to repeat what I said, because that is the lifeblood on the entrusted power. He had an entrusted power to manage the affairs of Pharaoh and the resources of Pharaoh, which needed him to be honest to the interest of Pharaoh. Which means the people that are in leadership, there must be accountability, because they are managing our affairs as citizens of this country and the resources which belong to us. And because they have honest interest in us, guess what Joseph said? He said, no, I cannot do that. He calls it by its name. He says it is sin. He says it is wicked. And then he says, I can't do this, not to Pharaoh, but to God. He was accountable. He says, I cannot do this. You get that in Genesis 39. He said, no. Potiphar put him in charge of his household, and he entrusted to his care everything he owned from the time he put him in charge of his house, of his household, and all that he owned. The Lord blessed it. And Joseph knew, that's 39 verse 5. And Joseph knew that, except for his wife. As a result, he said no to temptation. No to temptation. And there are three areas that he was tempted in. One, he said he was tempted sexually, and he said no. And secondly, he was tested in terms of power, because it's easy when you are in power and misuse or abuse the power. He could have used that power to get to this woman, but he said no. Also, he was tempted in terms of resources. And also, the problem with power, you can use your power to settle old scores. You don't like them. Maybe at some stage they cross your path, and because like, and then when you get into that position, you feel that this is the time for you to settle the scores, and then you use that position to purge, to destroy lives. And life becomes so cheap that lives are destroyed in the corridors without any reason. I'm doing it because I can. So it is, he was tempted in resources, he was tempted in power, he was tempted sexually. And this guy learned to say no to temptation. That's very, very important for us to know that. He said no to temptation. Thirdly, he said no to depression. You know how this guy, you find this guy quite interesting. He ends up in jail. He ends up in jail for something that he hasn't done. He has been accused, and then his garment has been taken by this woman and claiming that this man was trying to rape him. Now he is used in being unstripped. Remember, obrother bakhe bamkhulula ingubo, bayihlazula, baqhela isilwanyana, bayifaka egazini, bayithatha bayisa kuyise, and said, unyana wakho webhongo uqwengwe zizilwanyana. We are bringing this garment to you as a proof of that and evidence. And that man, he cried. He said, you will go to the grave. And his brothers, they knew that they were lying. Now again, ingubo yakhe ayikho. And still, now he's here in jail. I don't know whether you have ever been in jail, been arrested. I was once arrested. Kukho into amabanjwa athetha ngayo athi utyiwa sisisele. Xa unenzingo, cinga elokishini, cinga abazali bakho, into abazithethileyo. How did it happen for you to end up here? How long are you going to be here? You are totally depressed. You've got nowhere to go. Atama bandindi, utyiwa sisisele. And Joseph, he is here in jail. I want you to imagine this. There are other prisoners here, and among them there are two people who worked in Potiphar's household. And these guys, they wake up in the morning, they are totally depressed. And Joseph noticed that. And he had this ability of looking not just in his own problems, but to others also. He has an ability to go beyond his own challenges and see other people's challenges and be committed to do something about it. You see, there is a saying that says, you get the best of others when you give the best of yourself. I want to repeat that. You get the best of others when you give the best of yourself. And in this situation, he pays attention to them. They tell them their dreams. Let us not go into details of that. One guy, he says to him, this is what is going to happen to you. You are going back into your position. It's a matter of time, blah, blah, and all of that. And when you are there, please remember me. The other one is doomed. But you are going back there. Don't worry about it. The reason that he has this ability of saying no to depression, he has that Chinese say that says, I used to complain for having no shoes until I met someone who has no feet. You may think that your situation is bad. There's somebody who is in a worse situation than you. I will never forget, I have a friend called Buster Soares. He is in the States, in the state of New Jersey, New Brunswick. And Buster, he went in one of these African countries, and it was after the war. And then they went into a state hospital. He says, this place was filthy. This place, it had a smell that will make you vomit. It was cold. It was miserable. There were a group of plus minus 70 American pastors visiting this place. As they were moving in the entrance, passing in the corridors, this place is packed with military soldiers. Some, they have lost their limbs. People are sick. Udu Pastor, as he was walking down that aisle, there was a man sitting in the bed along the wall. He has lost his 2 arms. He has lost his 2 legs. And they touched him as he was passing, and they stopped him. And he came close to the guy. This guy asked him, are you a missionary? He said, no, I'm not a missionary. I'm a pastor. I am from America. This guy said, oh, please, can you come close? I want to pray for you. And Buster said to him, you pray for me? I mean, I'm wearing a suit. I've got all of my limbs. And you are here sitting in this cold, miserable hospital. You have lost your limbs. Pray for me. And this guy said to him, can you come close? He came close. He said to him, it could have been worse. It does not matter what your situation is. It could have been worse. That man refused to say yes to temptation, to depression. He said no to depression because it does not matter what this situation looks like. It could have been worse. And Joseph was that kind of a person who was always ready, back to that, yes, to responsibility. because you get the best of others when you give the best of yourself. He said no to depression. Do you know that what it took for him to get out of that jail? That man remembered him when Potiphar had a dream that nobody could interpret. And that man remembered. He remembered Joseph. That there is a Jew in jail that interpreted my dream to be where I am today. And that man recommended him to Potiphar. So he had a principle of saying no to depression. The fourth principle, he forgave. It's amazing. And again, it's a temptational power. Here now his brothers, it is the time of famine. It is drought. There's hunger all over the world. Except here in Egypt. And all the nations are coming here because they are looking for something to eat. And his brothers, they didn't know when they came here to Egypt that this man that is in charge, it is their brother, Joseph. And Joseph, when he saw them, he acknowledged them. These are my brothers that have sold me. He forgave. And this issue of forgiveness, it is a very difficult thing. That's why the weak can never forgive. Forgiveness is the attitude of the strong, because they understand what is entailed in forgiveness. Because if you've been wronged by somebody, you are imprisoned by that emotional pain, and that pain will never go away. In fact, this pain is not paining the one who wronged you. It is a continuous pain on your part. I will never forget. I'll never forget. I once met a young lady who was abused by an uncle at a very early age. And she was so angry with this. And every time she thought about this, it was as if she is being raped. Every time. She was not raped, but she is being raped continuously. She was in prison. So the forgiveness on her part, it will do more good for him, more than it will do good for the one she is forgiving. She was imprisoned. There is this, which I call victimhood culture, whereby if you have been wronged in the past and that becomes status for you, that it gives attention to you, you can use that to your own advantage, it gives you certain rights that are beyond the day-to-day laws, because people, they don't understand what you went through, and because of that, you can get away with the matter. And people, they find an opportunity to hold on to that because it's a kind of leverage that they can use for their own advantage. And therefore, they make a conscious decision that I am not going to let go on this because that's the only right that I have. And in the process of that is people that find themselves imprisoned by this pain. And my appeal to you this evening, the reason that I'm asking you to forgive is because I acknowledge that something is wrong that has been done to you. I do not underplay. I don't take it light. That is why it is difficult, and that is why it's not easy. And I know for a fact that sometimes you don't even feel like forgiving. But I want to bring to your attention that forgiveness is not the act of the emotions. It is the act of the will against what you feel. And also, it is important for you to know that it does not necessarily mean that you are going to forget about it, but it is the beginning of the healing process. When you take this conscious decision of forgiving. One thing that will make Mandela to go down in history as one of the greatest leaders and a great example. In 1994, Tim Modise was the journalist that was interviewing the last interview of the Honorable Tatu Rolihlahla Mandela, may his soul rest in peace, and the Honorable former South African President F.W. de Klerk. And in that meeting, it was a very interesting, very tense interview, because de Klerk and Mandela, they were on stage. And I want to give you, if you remember very well, when Mandela reached a point where he said to de Klerk what was happening in a town called black on black violence, and also in Johannesburg, in the mines, people killing each other. And Mandela said, I know, and I've got the information, facts, that you, as a South African government, you were behind that, you funded it, you supplied weapons for black people to eliminate each other. And then he stretched his hand and said, despite all of that, because of what lies ahead of us and the responsibility that we have, I'm prepared. And he stretched his hand and he took de Klerk's hand, lifted it up. I'm prepared to work with you and allow the bygones to be the bygones. That is what we call an ability to allow the past to pass. Because some other people, they don't get way forward. There is no progress in life because that pain holds them back. They can't go any further because the pain is holding them back. And Mandela had an ability to allow the past to pass. When he stepped out of Robben Island, Prosper prison and all of that, he stepped out and he began to start a new journey as a president of South Africa and allow the past to pass. Without underplaying or minimizing the impact of 27 years. But he knew that he cannot be in prison and be the president at the same time. Something had to go. This ability to allow the past to pass. Joseph, he forgave. You see, there's something that Gandhi speaks about. He speaks about politics without principles. Politics without principles. By that he means that if there is no principle, there is no true north, nothing you can depend upon. The focus on the personality ethic is the instant creation of an image that sells well in the social and economic marketplace. You see politicians spending millions of dollars to create an image, even though it's superficial, lacking substance, in order to get votes and gain office. And when it works, it leads to a political system operating independently of the natural laws that should govern, that are built into the Declaration of Independence. We hold this truth to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by the Creator with certain unalienable rights, and that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. In other words, they are describing self-evident, external, observable, natural, unarguable, self-evident laws. We hold these truths to be self-evident. The key to a healthy society is to get the social will, the value system, aligned with correct principles. You then have the compass needle pointing to the north, true north representing the external or the natural law. And the indicator says that is what we are building our value system on. They are aligned. It is to have principle. You find that Joseph had these principles. You find that Mandela had this principle that there is no way forward without taking a conscious decision to forgive in order to move forward and lead the country to another level. Otherwise, the country will become stagnant in the past. It's very, very important. Now, let's quickly and you go back to that no to temptation. Have you noticed something there on that no temptation? That Potiphar's wife is interested in this man. He didn't initiate this, but it's coming from this woman. And also, that's where he was tempted. Also, he was tempted in terms of resources, power, and everything. But because he didn't have this sense of entitlement. This sense of entitlement. This sense of entitlement because you're black. This sense entitlement because you are oppressed. His sense of entitlement because you are in Robben Island, or you are from exile, or you were arrested. It cannot take us anywhere. Because if there are no principles that govern politics, it leads to corruption. It leads to misuse of power. It leads to misuse of resources. It leads to using power to settle scores. In the long run, it destroys the nation. There's something here I would like to talk about quickly. I think I was doing matric at Newell High School. I really can't remember this, because we used to have, you do Shakespeare, we did Richard III, and then you do short stories, and also you've got a novel. There was a novel that we were doing. I know the main character was Philip Rayada. I can't remember the title of the book. And one thing I know about him, he was a deformed person. I think when he was formed, he didn't have a good looks. And then there is a line in that book that says, physical deformity often breeds hatred of humanity. What that line means, it means that, I don't know whether you have noticed this, let's say mhlambi lo muntu wafumana ingozi watsha mhlambi esendlini setyotyombe kubaswe ihita yadabhuka ihita batsha aba bantu, but laa mntu wasinda akatsha wade wabhubha, but watsha badly to an extent that wabethwe. If you meet this person, ufike iminwe yakhe eminye wayiluza, eminye igubile, amazinyo ngaphandle, indlebe zakhe zitshile, and what have you. The tendency is, if that person goes to a public place, people look at him askance, kind of a surprise. And because of that, that person feels the rejection of humanity. And then Lamdo ends up developing a hatred for humankind. And then he becomes a kind of philanthropist. Phileo, love, anthropos, man, philanthropist, a human hater, because of his deformity and the way people have treated him. And I want you to listen to this. This is my thought. Ndikholelwa ekuthini indaba ye-apartheid, indaba ye-slavery, abelungu basenza into yokuba sikholelwe into yokuba ukuba mnyama lilishwa sisiqalekiso, it is a curse. Anything that is associated with black, it's negative. Lilif elimnyama. He Black Friday, he Black Christmas, he Black Market, he anything black, he black sheep of the family. anything black is negative. They use the language to emphasize this. Uba ngaba mhlawumbi kwakhiwa indlu, kuthi xa kuxhonywa iphahla, kuxhonywe ilaphu, flag emhlophe, ukuba le ndlu igqityiwe, now we've arrived. Ukuba ngaba kukho imfazwe ze kunegotiatwe kuxolelwane, kuthathwa amahobe amhlophe akhululwe, ubonakaliswa uxolo, kuphakanyiswa iflag emhlophe. Ukuba ngaba kuyatshadwa, ilokhu emhlophe. Uba ngaba lo muntu ubhujelwe, funeka nxibe impahla emnyama, nakho kuthiwa laa nto lilifu elimnyama. Anything black, it's bad, it's negative, it's depressing. And I have a feeling that because of that, and now sit down, ufika belungu, abafuna udibana kunye nathi, basijonga askans, singabantu abanezothe, singabantu ababonwa bamdaka, ingathi sinesifo and all of that. Now I want you to listen to this. Subconsciously, we developed a kind of misphilanthropist that we became human haters. But specifically, we hated blackness. Hence, abantu abamnyama bebulalana kangaka. Abantu abamnyama bayazondana. Abantu abamnyama abafunani. Abantu abamnyama banezothe omnye komnye. As a result, we have leaders. I want you to listen to this. Leaders. But sikhokelwe ngabantu igama lesixhosa, abangazontandazizwe. They don't have deep love for their people. Leaders that are misphilanthropists. How do you get into that? You get into that, you see, by the things that we do to our own. When white people were doing what they were doing, it was something that was well calculated, that is specifically geared and focused to black people. You give them Bantu education. You build them houses that match boxes. You give them schools that have no playing grounds. You do everything. You give them homeland. You put them out there. You treat them less than animals because they are black. And you do everything for your own people. They love their own people. So it's painful when we do worse things to our people. Khona mama fika seMpumalanga, basela kulaa mlambo neenkomo neehagu neentoni neebhokhwe. Uthi yena uyaqala ukuyiva apha ezindabeni kuba kwakukhutshwa imali yange-40 million into yokuba kuzanywa indlela babe namanzi. Loo mali leyo kubantu abatyholwayo abayithathayo loo mali. You can't do that if you don't hate those people. It takes somebody with deep hatred to do something like that to other people. We lack love. commitment, accountability. No to temptation. No to depression. Power to forgive. And stop using power to settle scores. Uthi Joseph brother bakhe, nina nathi ngokubi ngam, kodwa uThixo wayenezinye injongo ngobubi benu. Hambani nize notata nomnina wami nize nizohlala apha nixolelwe akhondo. He forgave them. Let's go back on those principles. Yes to responsibility. No to temptation. Temptation in terms of sexual, in terms of resources, in terms of power. No to depression. He forgave. May God help us and grant us this ability just to be like Joseph. He did that not anywhere else. He didn't do it in Italy. He didn't do it in America. He didn't do it in England. He didn't do it in Finland. He did it in Africa, in Egypt. Here in this continent, we have this man who was so principled. He was a political figure, but it was politics with principles. He was a man with character. Somebody said, knowledge without character. That was Gandhi. As dangerous as little knowledge is, even more dangerous is much knowledge without a strong, principled character. Purely intellectual development without commensurate internal character development makes as much sense as putting a high-powered sports car in the hands of a teenager who is high on drugs. Yet all too often in the academic world, that is exactly what we do by not focusing on the character development of our young people. Mandivale ngilithi yonke akho khaya lingenabhozo. Ngoba kaloku kuyachutywwa ngalo, kusikwa nezonka, kutheni kunqunqwa iitapile nee-carrots, kutyiwa ngamabhozo. Kodwa once ibhozo ulibeke esandleni segeza, iba yingozi. Once you take power and give it to a man without a character, you are going to see disaster. God bless us all. Africa, South Africa. Amen. Uzokolo lwakho imbeko indili ukuyiyeka. Hloniphekile Thixo. Siyalithandazela ilizwe lethu. Neenkokheli zethu. Bancede Thixo bane kubulunkobo gqitha ngokuqonda. Lokhu sokucela egameni lenkosi Yesu. Ozukekileyo nomele wokusukiswa. Amen.